Hello from where Circumtanks Invest. We're talking about investing, finance, and professional for today's items only. The management gonna talk today will be Ethereum TKTH. First, I want to say happy Wednesday, everybody. Hope a great week so far. Respect to recording time of 9:51 a.m. on the Eastern Time. Ethereum currently $4,832, up about 2.10% so far. On the overall crypto market, it's kind of a mixed bag, right? With the leading coins like Bitcoin and Ethereum leading the effort up about 2% respectively. And on the equity side is we had a preliminary bearish sentiment with the release of the CPI report that came out today. And I think with respect to the numbers, it definitely caught people by surprise, right? Based on the investment sentiment, and we saw that in the activity that we have seen the pre-market perspective on the equity side. That we were correcting slightly, right, with respect to the anticipated pressure that we have already had yesterday, that drives some correction on the equity side yesterday. And as the report came out, it definitely is something that I guess is foreseeable, but it can be a little bit alarming. Just in a just position perspective, the U.S. consumer price jumped by 6.2% in October, right? And if you compare that historically, this is the largest inflation surge in more than 30 years, right? And if you look at the core inflation number, stripping out food and energy costs, which is the big adjustment for it, it still increased by 4.6%, which is the fastest gain since September of the same year. And energy, shelter, and vehicle costs led the gains, which is more than wiped out the wage increase that workers received for the month, right? So inflation is definitely not the most ideal in terms of for the economy, right? It shows the weakness, in a financial perspective for our country. But we are reviving, and I think the Feds are trying their best to triangulate between the job numbers versus the unknown with respect to the potential spike of the COVID variants, despite the travel ban, which has relieved. But at the same time, there are a lot more people that are shifting from working, in corporate jobs to shifting to become entrepreneurs as well, which I've seen a big statistical article on that 1 out of 3 employees in the US are planning on leaving their jobs. So I think the Feds are trying their best to juggle multiple different factors, and that basically translates into some corrections in the preliminary perspective yesterday and on the pre-market perspective, right? And when you see something like that, you have that something called the anti-correlation effect onto the crypto market, which as the equity market goes down, which is down right now if you look at it, SPY is still kind of hovering up about 0.03%, but Nasdaq and S&P are both down respectively. And we also saw that very prominently pre-market, right? Multiple tech stocks, despite positive earnings yesterday, still sold off, right? Because of this inflationary surge, which historically this is a record-breaking surge, right? That translates into more buying pressure onto the key coins, right? Because like Bitcoin, Ethereum is characterizes some sort of like a safe haven asset class, just on Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? Because of how commercialized and how popularized this has been on the media front. So, this surge is continuing our bullish momentum. And also with respect to Bitcoin, why it's surging as well, because of the technical, right, is coming true with the golden cross, despite we being overbought. And on the Elon Musk, right, which he is some sort of a market influencer, is confirmed that with the polling system that he has, given the last 48 hours, gaining insights or advice from his subscribers on his Twitter account, 56% of the people, which is the majority of it, are voting yes that he should be selling 10% of his holding, which is worth about like $25 billion. I think he's probably going to use that towards like paying tax. But also some people are speculating that he might be just buying Bitcoin or Ethereum or use that for other initiatives. But a lot of people are speculating that he might be using that to purchase more Bitcoin, right? So that's something still speculations on top of the inflationary pressure, on top of the Australian news that we've heard yesterday from their Australian SEC that they are releasing their own ETF for Bitcoin, respectively, that drives some buying pressure globally, specifically for Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? So on the media front, let's just take a look at some of the news real quick. I would say there's some substantive news, some that is just more reminding news. I think the key catalyst is already things that we've talked about, right? The Elon Musk news, the CPI report, the Australian news. These are like the key macro drivers. In terms of micro drivers, I would say the news are a lot of quantity, but in terms of like quality, I don't really see a lot of news that's really worth mentioning this morning, to be honest with you. These are just like saying like how much they've been surging so far, how much are they rallying so far, what to expect. The only one that's really worth mentioning is with respect to Ripple to launch liquidity hub with Bitcoin and Ethereum, which is something we already talked about yesterday. So let's just dive right into the technicals right now. With respect to Ethereum, currently up about 2.4%. Still leaping up. There's no signals of reversing yet. As we know, we're still overbought. So we're in new territory right now. Do we see a sell-off coming? I think right now, I don't think so because of the fact that Bitcoin just formed a golden cross despite being overbought. But if we think that history is going to repeat itself, that the RSI is going to keep going up to like above 92, we have some room to run up to, like to the 70K, obviously, which we tested to 69.047 today. And we might just do that all over again because we just formed a golden cross, so we still have some curvature to go up to in a trajectory perspective. Like a baseball, if you throw a baseball, the baseball doesn't just come down afterwards, right? It's going to take some time to surge up and then slowly, with inertia, propel from there, right? So I think we might have some room to run up to like the 70K to even possibly 80K if we see more positive news from here. And the golden cross is something that is a bullish signal, so that means I don't foresee any downside in anytime soon yet. Also on top of that, you could see that there's this like a kind of a downward wedge and a cup and handle as well. So we might see more surging pressure, which would drag up the Ethereum to go up from here, right? Despite Ethereum being just like a escalator so far, right? Dogecoin right now is kind of hovering on a sideways fashion. And right now it's just at the 54 out of 70. So it's not like oversold or overbought. We basically contemplate, do we break above 30 cents or break below 25 cents? And I think ideally in 25 cents to the 20 cents would be much more logical for me to dollar cost average at from the risk profile perspective. Cardano is normalizing because we formed that golden cross, right? We talked about this and we surged to the next level, ideally to the 240. We broke above 230, which is the level that we have some consolidation at, which makes sense, right? But we couldn't sustain because of the lack of sustainability. So ideally, wait for it to come back down to like 213 or like ideally at the 194. But I wouldn't really touch it until like, we probably get below 2. Because if we break 2, we might have to go all the way to 187, which we have tried before. But if we break 187, we have a long way to go. You could see this gap right here, right? 145, which is the next level. Solana is right now struggling. You can see we're forming a death cross slowly, so a sell-off is imminent. I think ideally selling back down to somewhere around like the 153 to 130 to 113 would be much more logical from here. XRP right now, it's basically leaping up because of the drag effects. And also with respect to XRP, there is some news around the launch on the liquidity hub, right, from Ripple. So we did break above 130, which is great. But right now we're basically in new space territory. It's either we go up all the way to 140 or come down back to 130 and break below 130 and come back to 120. And I think 120 is more likely because we're still overbought, right? So these are the frame of reference I would be playing at. Polkadot is just kind of hovering. We're forming a death cross slowly with the 62 out of 70. So ideally selling back down to 42. Ideally wait for it to come back to like the 30 all the way to the 25 would be much more logical. Algorand is surging right now, 61 out of 70. Basically trying again to the $2.10, which we got canceled like so many times, right? So I think the likelihood would be probably low for us to break above 210. So ideally buy back at the below 160 to 152. Shiba Inu is still selling off because of the fact that we've been selling off, right? We've been, whatever goes up really, really fast, come down just as fast. So this is just a weakness from all the public investors or retail investors. So it makes a lot of sense. 52 out of 70. So ideally buy back at the 2815 or the 900 will be much more logical from here. So with respect to risk management levels, despite the preliminary negative CPI report, but subsequently revived because of the intensive support pressure that we've had yesterday based on the correction, we just kind of normalizing. So if you net think about it, if you combine the 2 days from yesterday and today, we're basically net even because of the anti-correlation effect and also with respect to the intensive support pressure, right? But ultimately, we in the business of risk mitigation, we can never really time the market accurately because there are just a lot of exogenous factors that we cannot capture. And these are levels that we ideally want to be looking at as we deplete back to below 35 on our RSI scale, as we deplete back to the preliminary golden cross that we form, per like an example on Cardano specifically, right? So hopefully this is helpful. Feel free to take a screenshot of this picture if you are, find this useful. And feel free to give me any questions if you have any specific ones. And stay tuned for the club. Take care. Bye.